Are now.
Yeah, ready? All right. First of all, my name is Colin Tyler. You may want to write that down. I'm here to speak to you about Albert Einstein. Obviously, I've never met Albert Einstein, but he's a guy that has really endeared himself to me the more that I've learned about him. He's really famous for the theory of relativity, which I'm sure all of you know. It's a very famous equation, E equals mc squared. He's also famous for helping invent the atomic bomb. But that's not why he's my hero. It has a little bit to do with it, but not really a big part. The biggest reason that he is my hero is that Albert Einstein accomplished so much in the real world despite being an average student by his own admission. That's something I really identify with. He's a very quotable guy, and you can find his quotes all over the internet. And one of my favorite quotes of his is one that says, "Education is what remains after you've forgotten everything that you've learned in school." I love that quote. Okay, yeah, he always, when Einstein, I missed it. Really, when I look at Einstein's life, like, this is not something that he actually says, but this is my own personal opinion. I like his life, and his life presents this kind of interesting conflict between the model of classroom achievement and the actual reality of real-world achievement. Like, right here we have a classroom with 4 walls, and we have 30 students sitting in it, and a teacher. And the teacher will hand us a piece of paper with questions on it and a test, and she'll take up assignments, and the grade that we get on the assignment reflects our achievement in the classroom. And that's the best model that we've come up with to determine how we're going to succeed in the real world. Doesn't mean it's the best model. Doesn't mean it's 100% accurate. And Einstein's a great example of that. He had an average academic record, which is basically another word for he probably made a lot of C's. In fact, he admits that he cheated off of another student's notes just to get through tests, which is a very strange thing for a world-renowned physicist and a world-renowned scientist to admit. But what Einstein did is he would go to class and he would, do what the teacher told him to do, but then he would go home and he would learn in the way that he was most comfortable learning about the things that he wanted to learn about, which ended up being the things that propelled him to such a great career in the field of science. And it presents this great example of how it's not necessarily that important what you do in here. I mean, it is important. If you get straight A's in here, you're probably going to be successful in life. I don't know, but it's just really, for me, it's this message of hope that just because you don't do what's considered success in the classroom doesn't mean you're not going to go on to do great things in the world. And I realize that may not be what you want to hear as a teacher, but that's just how I feel. In fact, it reminds me of this book that I read recently. It's a book called Outliers. It's by a guy named Malcolm Gladwell. He's a guy that did a lot of studies on why people are successful in the real world. And in that book, he tells the story of a psychologist in the 1960s who went through the California school system, public school system, and administered an IQ test to kindergartners. He took the best scores from that IQ test, had them take another IQ test, took the best scores from those tests, had them take another one, until he had selected the 300 brightest students in the California public school system. He thought, these guys had IQs in the 150 to 190 range, which is actually higher than Einstein's IQ. And he thought that he had the future rulers of the world right here in one group. He thought he'd found, the future presidents and CEOs and executives and people that were going to go on to shape the future of the world. But it didn't work out that way. A third of them became doctors, lawyers, they had good jobs. They made a lot of money, probably 6 figures. There may have been a couple millionaires, not a whole lot. Another third of them had pretty good jobs. They didn't make 6 figures, but they were putting a lot of bread on the table. And a third of these people that had genius IQs, by his standard of achievement, had all the tools necessary to succeed in the real world. A third of those people were homeless, living on their mom's couch, or working minimum wage jobs, living below the poverty line, which was really astounding, considering that these were people with genius IQs. And in fact, 2 of the people that he passed over in his selection process went on to win the Nobel Prize in whatever field that they excelled in. And while that doesn't directly relate to Einstein, I think it presents the same conflict. You've got achievement in the real world and achievement in here, and they don't always correlate. And sometimes they do, but they don't always. And that was something that I really took away from Einstein's life. It's something that I felt his life really represented. that really takes up two of my points, actually, because my second point was that he kind of had this disdain and rejection for the whole classroom model of achievement. But that kind of goes hand in hand with the first one. Anyway, the last reason for the purposes of this speech that Einstein is my hero is that he's a very intelligent guy, and he's got a lot of great philosophies on war, science, politics, religion, you name it. You can find a quote about it, and it's probably a good one. My favorite one that has stuck with me since I read it is about war. He says, heroism on command, senseless violence, and all the loathsome nonsense that goes by the name of patriotism. How I despise them. It is my conviction that killing under the cloak of war is nothing more than an act of murder. Which, okay, I'm not naive. You don't have to tell me that war is something that's going to be around forever. I know that. But I think it's really important to strive not to make war, if that makes any sense. I know that to get rid of war, you would have to rewire the human brain. Like, that's just something that's built into our brains. We have conflict with other people that disagree with us. We go to war with them, whether it's, on a national level or just between two people. But I really believe in this quote, that killing in any circumstance, even if it's under the cloak of war, is murder. It's wrong, but I know that it's always going to be around. And like I said, I know that's never going to go away, but when I read this quote, I think that we can strive to do better than what we're doing right now. Because there's a lot of senseless violence in the world, not even between two countries. Just if you walk down the street in Tulsa, you'll find people killing each other for absolutely no reason. You'll find gangs shooting each other for absolutely no reason. I knew people in high school that would go out and just shoot each other, again, for absolutely no good reason. I think it's a good reason. They think it's a good reason, but it's not a good reason. And that just absolutely blows my mind that people do that. That quote just always really stuck with me. I guess that's all I really have to say. I hope that I've used the time wisely, and I hope you enjoyed my speech. I'm Colin Tyler.